It's just right now. We can talk to YouTube.
I'm okay.
I need to make sure it's recorded.
I look forward to hearing. Seeing, there's a lot of things I don't really share.
It's just right now.
Yeah, it's like a very standard work, and there's some other.
It's pretty good.
20 pages, but-
Okay, planning commissioners, we are live on YouTube and I'll hit the record button.
Ready? All right. Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting tonight. It's August 17th and we're happy to see all of you here.
Okay,
Will
planning
be a fun
commissioners, we
meeting.
are live on YouTube and I'll hit the record button.
We need to have an opening.
YouTube is muted now. Okay, I think we've got it figured out.
Ready?
Yep.
All right.
Very good.
All right. Please repeat the pledge of allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we are grateful to be able to be here tonight in this planning commission meeting. We are grateful for this beautiful community in which we live and for the good people that live here. We're grateful for the good summer that we've enjoyed and for the water that we've been blessed with this year. We're thankful to be able to be here, and we pray now that Thou will help us to discuss things in a civil and good manner, that we might be able to come to some fair and honest decisions. We pray for Thy help in this, and we thank Thee for our families and for the many good blessings we have in living here in North Logan, and say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay. We need to have a motion to adopt the agenda of April. Can you put in my hand? Oh, yes. Hopefully you all read the agenda minutes for the agenda of April 13th meeting. And I need a motion.
August.
August 13th. Oh, the agenda. Yes, I always mess up. I'm sorry, Marie, on that. Just anxious to get on. Okay, the agenda. We need a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting tonight, August 17th.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, so Davin moved and Kenny seconded.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, we'll approve the minutes of April 13th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting. I need a motion to approve or not,
I move we approve those minutes.
and a second. I second. All right, Heron made a motion and Heather seconded to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes of April 13th, 2023. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, great, passed. Any follow-up issues from our previous meetings, Scott?
I don't have anything to follow up with today. Nope.
Okay. All right, great. All right, we have a public hearing, and so I think before we start a public hearing, we would like to give Mr. Faber a chance to tell us what you're proposing here. Would you like to do that for a minute? Not long, but tell us.
Well, we'll try and keep it brief. I just appreciate the chance to come back
and present, kind of our ideas here that we've been working on for a while. It's been a year or so acquiring the ground and working through some planning meetings with the groups here. So by way of introduction, I'm Dr. Cody Ferber. I'm actually a veterinarian, not a developer as we go through this today. More of a dreamer, really, than a developer. So I'd like to just start by introducing what New Vision is about. So I'm a founder of a nonprofit called New Vision Veterinary. They're actually the ones that are promoting and proposing this project today. I'm the founder there. We've got two of our board members here, Dr. Lyle McNeil, who's an emeritus professor at Utah State, and then Dr. Brett Miller is also here. He's our chairman of the board for New Vision. So we welcome them. But I'd like to just take a minute and give you guys a background of why we created New Vision Veterinary. And if it works, I would love to share a 3-minute video that really talks about kind of the state that the profession's in.
And we're going to try our best to get this to work. It is on YouTube, and we'll see if we have any echo, but we'll give it a go.
And Scott, we'll just play till the 3rd minute.
As I mentioned before, I am a veterinarian, and it's been my experience that most people don't personally know a veterinarian in their own life. They may have one that they go to for services, but they don't have one as a friend or family member or something like that. And as such, I found that very few people can relate to what I do for a profession and really understand me as a person. So to get us all on the same page, I wanted to start by just going through some facts about the veterinary profession. It took me 10 years to become a veterinarian. That includes 4 years of undergraduate work, 2 years of post-bac studies, while I also worked as a veterinary assistant to gain clinical hours. I then enrolled in WSU College of Veterinary Medicine, go Cougs, and there did 3 years of lecture and lab work, and then a rotating year in clinics where you get to practice with animals under supervision. $286,000 is approximately the amount of student loan debt I took just for WSU alone. I affectionately call this my brain mortgage. It equates to $1,100 a month for the next 30 years of my life, and I will make my last payment when I am 62. 60% of veterinarians are now female. We broke the 50-50 mark when I was a sophomore. And so I'm really excited to be able to be a female representative of veterinarians today. We have a problem within our industry where more veterinarians are leaving the field than coming in every year. It's about 5% attrition rate right now. Some of that has to do with the fact that baby boomers are leaving. But it also has to do with a lot of compassion fatigue and burnout that's happening amongst my colleagues, and the fact that they're choosing to leave because they just can't do it anymore. This next statistic is hard to transition to in any type of gentle ways. Of the veterinarians who have died since 2010, 10% have committed suicide. Of the veterinarians who commit suicide, 75% are your small animal veterinarians that work with dogs and cats. 3 is the number of my friends who are veterinarians who have taken their own lives since I graduated in 2016. All of them were in their first 5 years of practice.
Helen Hansel was able to win any competition she took part in. She was known as the contest queen.
And then there's me. As a female small animal veterinarian with a high debt load, I represent one of the highest groups for suicide rate in our country. My profession is ranked number 2, just behind police officers. But I am 3.5 times more likely to take my life than anyone else in this auditorium today.
So you guys have put a little personal spin on that. We've unfortunately had one of our technicians take their life and had one attempt. And I just this summer had a veterinarian leave the profession a little bit after the 5 years, but because not necessarily leave the profession, but choose a different path because of that same stuff. So I relate to Dr. Bowden there. So kind of bringing that out, not to put it down, and you're probably like, why is he talking about this at a planning and zoning meeting? This is us. This is New Vision, and this is why we're creating or want to create the New Vision Veterinary Campus. And we want to make a difference. I can't sit back. We own 5 clinics, have 55 employees, and I can't sit back as an owner and watch this continue to take place. I can't do it financially as a business owner, but my heart can't take it anymore. So 3 years ago, we created New Vision. And as part of that, we want to change the way veterinarians are taught, the way they are educated, the hands-on experiences they have, the culture that they're taught in, the experience that they have during school and after school. And that's where this concept of New Vision Veterinary Campus has come about. And the reason, and kind of Scott's got some notes here of some of the unique things that will take place on the campus. But I'd like maybe before we go there, could we go to just the location of the property, Scott, that we're talking about?
Do you just want an aerial imagery or would you
Yeah.
like the site plan?
Yeah. So probably 2 years ago, we approached the university and wanted to find a location that would fit all of the needs for this veterinary campus. One, we needed it close to the university, because as the students would do their hands-on applied learning experiences on our campus, they would do their classwork and other things up at the university. To be clear too, we're not associated with Utah State. We're an independent group. We just want to provide some experiences for the students. So we needed to be close to the university, but we also needed to have caseload, which means we need to be around people. We need to have residents with pets that can come in and use our services. So as the university gave us ideas of property that potentially we could trade for, which is what we did, this was the piece that we chose. The second reason we chose this particular location was its proximity to the city center, the fact that it was in the city center zone. And we're excited about the developments and different things that were happening or could happen in that city center to again provide an experience on this campus for our students. We like the idea that in the general plan too, and Scott, maybe if we could look at page 30 of the general plan, this piece of property was right in the middle of that city center. Also had the mixed use zone. So in this diagram here, it's to the red, right there is city center and mixed use. And our piece of property is right where that cursor is. So we're well within the boundaries. Just to give some orientation, the canal is to the west or to the east and towards the green, and then the just west is to the left of the screen up there. So we like that proximity. Again, trying to create a community feel. We really were excited about the accessibility on the east there with the canal and the path and the ability for our students to travel from this location up to the university. The last big piece that led us to pick this place was the ability to do 2 things is what we've been hoping to do. One, to build a full service veterinary clinic, and we'll show you some of the plans for that. But on that same piece of property, be able to build some moderate income, student affordable housing so that the students could live, work, recreate, socialize, play in the same location and not have to travel. So this next little piece is a plot that we've done of our piece of ground. So we traded Utah State for 7.6 acres. Let's see, Scott, can we?
Sorry, it's a big PDF, so give me a
Okay.
second while it
There you go.
renders here.
So this is that piece of ground. So what we've got designed here is the animal clinic, the hospitals right there. In that clinic, we can show you some of the layouts of that. There's 6 exam rooms, 2 surgeries rooms. It's all designed to teach. Lots of space for students and veterinarians to be involved in teaching. Some of the elevations and different things of what we've thought the clinic might look like. In the upstairs portion of this, there's a conference room, a place where we can sit 30 students facing a board, even as many as 100 folks facing forward for a lecture or a discussion in the upstairs area of kind of more of a student center with kitchen study areas, things like that. So maybe back to the map there a little bit, Scott, if that's all right. So on this, and again, I don't want to dredge too much, but about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from Scott saying the weeds on this property were huge. A veterinarian, me, I personally went and got my tractor, and within 24 hours, I was out there mowing 8-foot weeds for a day and a half. So as I sat on my tractor out there, I started thinking, all right, this is where this might be. This is where this might be. What are the neighbors going to think? Am I going to block the views? What are we going to do? Is there a way we can help with some of the noise? Maybe the barking dogs, maybe the smells, maybe parking for all these students. What does it look like? And for a day and a half, I tried to put myself in all of your guys' positions with your homes right there as I drove that tractor back and forth. And I realized that we have really created a space with buffers, with, you know, a lot of open space, a lot of opportunities to work and be right on the premise. That as I pondered about it and thought about it, I thought this is the place. This is zoned for the city center for mixed use. And I can share with you some of the paragraphs out of that document that really say that this is the right place for this type of project. But some of the things I'll point out on the west and north, there's play areas that are connected to the subdivision to the north with a walking path. So it's an area that we would open up to the public. So a playground, an area for children to come play. To the west there, to the canal, we've created a buffer of a dog park. Again, open to the public with even parking spaces there for public people to come and park. There's an option for folks to come off that canal path and come be a part of that. Obviously, the students that are proposed, they're graduate students. It's not just an everyday student going to be living in this space, but they're graduate students. A lot of them have pets they can access and use that same area. We've got ample parking. We've tried to buffer from the subdivision to the north by leaving it the SF6 current zoning designation with those 8 lots there. We've tried to buffer to the west with the dog park, and then to the south to the retirement community. There's a natural buffer of ground and things that we don't already own. We've tried to offset our buildings too towards the center of the property to try and again, give some space, because I live in Perry, a little small town, and I own property in multiple places. And for me, again, I tried to put myself in the neighbors' spaces there and tried to get a feel. What has given us this layout is we'd like to house half the students that are proposed to come into the university, which is about 150 students. We've done calculations that if it stayed the SF6 or went to the MR7 zoning, the same number of individuals would be housed in those individual single family homes. What's driven us to this is, as we calculated the cost of housing students in a single family home versus more of an apartment style, the cost was double. So to keep a project that would be of a level, the moderate income or low income housing that a student could afford, this is the only way we could do that. And with that, we needed to couple the vet clinic on that same property, that same location. So hence the proposal that goes to the CCA zoning. So that is really my part. I've invited 2 vet students that are currently enrolled in the USU program to come and just share a couple of quick thoughts. We've been working with them all summer with surgeries and other things, but we've got, should we call you a doctor? Not quite yet, huh? Maybe a couple more years. So Ann Seafried and Madison Gilman, you can give them a few minutes.
Can we limit you to 2 minutes each, please? No more. Thank you. So my name is Madison Gilman. We're both second year students at the university. But we just wanted to give some of our thoughts on building this and having the convenience of housing, housing and the hospitals on the same property. For the location, with it being so close to where they wanted to build the vet campus, as also not very far from just university campus, is super convenient because having a hospital that like close that is willing to work and teach the vet students is super valuable to us, because we have to travel like almost 2 hours to get some of the experiences that we've already been able to get with working with New Visions this past summer. And so like even the clinics in Logan are, some of them like to work with the vet students, but it's very limited, like 1 or 2 students can come for like 1 day a month or things like that. So something like this would be so significant to the students and their learning and being able to like feel more confident coming out of vet school. And then also just that the location and that of having it living on the property with the hospital and then being able to go to the vet school is all super convenient and valuable.
My name is Ann Seifert, and I'm a second year vet student and president of the surgery club. And one of the things I wanted to speak to was the housing that this is going to provide. So I moved here from out of state, from Montana, with my husband, and it took months for us to find housing down here. We had to take time off of work to drive down here and look for housing, and still couldn't find anything that would suit our small family. If this had been there at the time, it would have been so much easier, alleviated so much stress. And with how many students are going to be coming to the new USU vet school, it's going to be taking away that many places from people that already live in this community. Let's see. And then the benefit, this being pet friendly, a lot of us vet students have pets, and we have a lot of trouble finding a place that's pet friendly. And this way, all the landlords could keep their places being not pet friendly if they want to, and we can bring our pets here. And then the other thing I wanted to speak to was just the community that this will provide. Right now, I live down in Hiram, so that was the only place we could find a house, and it's a lot harder for me to be with my classmates just due to distance. And I already drive back and forth a couple times in a day sometimes if I need to. And this would provide a lot easier opportunity for me to be with my classmates, studying with them. And even if there's just any other members of the community living on there, such as like professors or residents.
Okay.
But thank you.
Thank you.
So just in summary, you guys, our vision statement is to ignite a cultural revolution in veterinary medicine. And I'd invite the citizens of North Logan City and our city planning commission to join us in this revolution and make a difference that already is affecting students, and we don't even have a building. So we appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks. Scott, do you want to
Yeah,
add anything before we?
just a couple of things that I think everyone in the room needs to be aware of with this particular type of a project and the type of review that we are doing tonight. So this piece of property, it is zoned SF6, single family 6. It's 6 residential units to the acre. That's the current zoning classification. And in order for this project to fit a zoning classification within the zoning ordinance, the CCA classification was a good fit, whereas it allowed for a veterinary hospital and for multifamily housing, hence the need for us to change the zone. Now, this type of an action, changing a zone, is a legislative action, meaning that the city has broad deference in its ability to review the proposal and to consider different interest points and topics and planning documents and public opinion. And there's a lot of information and variables that the planning commission can consider in making their determination. Now, the planning commission is an appointed body. They are a recommending body, as in they don't make final decisions. They review it, they vet it, they work with a developer on a proposal, and then they make a recommendation. That recommendation could be positive, negative, positive with conditions, and it could be any gamut in between. And they will pass that recommendation to the city council, who is the legislative body for the city. They are the decision makers. They are the land use authority. So the outcome tonight may be that we have a recommendation. It may be that the planning commission asks for more information and that the applicant come back to the planning commission with more to discuss or to information to analyze. Or it could be recommended for denial or approval and pass to the city council, but it'll depend on the planning commission's thoughts on this proposal tonight. If it's passed to the city council would hold another meeting in the relatively near future and could make a decision to either approve or deny. Okay, but what you'll see here, this exhibit is a concept plan. It's very high level, very rough in its proposal. It's trying to communicate intent. If, for example, there were to be an approval for this rezone, the applicant would have to go through many more steps of review and approval before any building permit would be issued. There'd be a subdivision that splits up the land into different pieces. There would be a site-specific design review for all of the city center design requirements. And ultimately, a building permit could be issued if all of those things were to come to fruition. So I wanted everyone in the room to understand where we are in this process and where it could go or where it could not go. Okay, so just a heads up on what it means and what we're doing here tonight, the decision type. Okay.
Okay.
Happy to provide any additional more detailed information as necessary. We have quite a lengthy staff report and we can open that up, talk about it, flip back and forth between exhibits. We can ask more questions to the applicant if we want more clarifications. We do want to hold a public hearing tonight. That's part of the legislative decision-making process, that we get public input and understand the public's thoughts on this as part of our decision-making process. So we'll make sure we save time for that process as well. Okay.
Okay. So I would like, if there's any discussion before we hear the public, I'd like to hear the public and then discuss after. What? Commissioners, what would you prefer?
Yeah, I'm good with the public hearing.
Okay, start it. Gavin?
It may be valuable for, I'm in the minority on this probably, but it might be valuable to hear some of the high points of the staff report. So that as the public makes their comment, they have some context for what's being considered. But that's my advice to you.
Okay. Scott, do you want to give us high points? Hopefully, this has been a big report, over 35 pages that we've all read and gone through several times. But Scott, help us out here.
Absolutely happy to do that. Let's hop up here. Let me know if I'm going too deep or if it's too superficial. There's a lot of details in here. And what we're looking at when we're doing an analysis of rezoning, we're looking at the current zoning versus the proposed zoning, and we're trying to weigh the differences. What does it look like? What are the differences? What are the merits? What are the detractors? To help us make a good decision on, does this make sense at this point in time or not? And so we've gotten a good summary from the applicant, a good high level overview of what the proposal is. So I'll skip over those portions of the staff report. This particular parcel is located along the east side of 4th East, between 4th East and the Twin Ditches Canal, and between 2200 North and 1800 East.
And Scott, tell us the little part that's not, who owns that?
So this piece just right here, you mean to the
Yeah.
south? Let me zoom in here, you guys, just so you guys can see a little better. This piece right here is owned by Rocky Mountain Power or Pacificor. And they are holding on to it for future unknown needs or interests, but they are not planning to develop this at any particular time that I know of. They may choose to sell it, they may choose to hold on to it. The future of that parcel is unknown at this time.
And how big is that?
This piece here is about 2.5 acres.
Scott, while we're on this page, in the staff report and then in the overview here, it was mentioned in both places that this is a convenient location to campus and that the bridge across the canal there facilitates access to campus, but I'm having a hard time seeing either of those things.
Sure.
Help me with that.
Under today's circumstances, it probably is challenging to traverse that canal with the weeds and everything else that are along it, but the canal here, any new development, this is city ordinance, any new development along or adjacent to a canal is required to provide a 15-foot easement and a public walking path along the canal. And so that has been secured through these developments to the north, and it also has been secured by this development to the south. Now, all along these canals throughout town, there are places where we've secured easements and places where we have not yet secured easements, but the intent is we cobble together these connections over time and that those connections are made for, public enjoyment, for active transportation, for pedestrian, foot traffic. So if this were to develop, there would be a requirement that a trail be provided on that far east side. And a trail that would connect the twin ditches between this parcel and the city center. This parcel is owned by the city. The plan for this area is that it will be used as a public square or a civic public environment, so to speak. So all of our planning documents call for pedestrian connections between the twin ditches and that centralized area of the city center, which this proposal would facilitate.
But you're still a couple miles away from campus here. So
You would.
when you talk about access to campus, are you saying just
It would still be vehicular or, transit might, when new development occurs, the transit stops follow new roof houses and where the demand is. So likely there would be CVTD service to this location. And that would be how it would connect.
Is the intent, maybe the example was Hiram is further than Logan, so this is closer to campus, maybe in a certain situation.
Yeah.
That could be the intent that was.
I guess when I think of accessibility, I don't think a couple miles away still, but that's why I
Sure.
just want a clarification on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're a college town, we're a college community, there's students all over the valley, but yeah, it would be nice to be closer than further. I'm sure that would be a little less travel time back and forth and back and forth. I'm a Hiramite as well, so I know that travel can get long, but for a student, they've got classes up on campus, and I guess the intent here is that there be maybe clinical rotations or clinical experiences that these students would be able to partake in those. And so they wouldn't need to drive, back and forth too far. But again, yeah, it's not on campus with Utah State. And we should be clear, there is not a Utah State affiliation formally. It is a private venture that would be open to working with the vet programs that are in town, both at the university and at Bridgerland Technology College. So between those two programs, this is a nice facility where some students can get some practical experiences. At least that's what the proposal would hope.
There's that, so the power property, it looks like a flag, right? Is that
It
it
is.
goes along there? What's the width of the pole?
So the pole, if we were to get into this, is, let's see, I think it's a half width right away, maybe a little bit wider. There is a master plan street through this area. That when and if this parcel were to develop, a road would go through here, but looks like it's 60, almost 66 feet. So it is a full width right of way. So there would be a road that would connect east-west. So 2000 North is master plan street. And if we zoom out a bit, it'll provide access all the way down to Main and traverse through and connect into 2100 is the master plan trajectory of that connection.
Thank you.
Yep. Should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's just locations, so everybody's aware where we're talking about. Okay, the city center, let me go back to the general plan exhibit that we had up a minute ago. There we go. This is what we call the future land use map. This was the map that was adopted in our 2013 general plan, and at that point in time, the city center was a broad concept. It called out this general area of town being a mixed use city center. So it goes from the Twin Ditches over to Main Street, a block off of Main Street here. And so anywhere in this area, we were kind of identifying as a generality, this is city center. We should be putting some of our mixed uses and some of our more compact development patterns in this general area of town. Hop back over. Today, the city center zoned parcels are encapsulated in this dark black line. You kind of see it's not as congruent, but this parcel is still within that city center area. The SF6 zone that it is currently classified as is a city center zone, but it is a single family small lot residential city center zone, which follows the same development pattern that you'll see immediately to the north in the Westview subdivision. If this parcel were to develop as the parcel to the north did, you'd see a very similar development pattern to follow towards the south.
And
Okay.
so for those of you that haven't been on the commission for a while, the city center zone has certain requirements for housing materials, design, all that. So.
Yeah, definitely a heightened design standard. Pedestrian connectivity is a high degree of importance in this area. Now, obviously, it's still vehicle oriented, but we're trying to get much more pedestrian friendly in this part of town. Okay, the proposal would split this parcel slightly. As proposed with those single family lots on the north side of the parcel, there's no need to rezone this portion. It can continue that development pattern under the existing proposal. However, the south and east portions here, it's about 6 acres, would need to change to the CCA classification in order to allow for that vet hospital and the multifamily housing that's proposed to support it. So that hence the reason for the rezone request. Okay. So hopping down, a couple of things I wanted to compare in this analysis is what does the density look like between the two? The SF6 zone has a minimum residential density of 4 units to the acre and a maximum density of 6 units to the acre. In the city center adjacent, when it is east of Second East, it needs to be no more than 12 units to the acre. West of Second East, there's an allowance for slightly higher density at 18 units to the acre. So the Four Seasons apartment complex that was allowed under the CCA as 18 units to the acre. So if you can visualize that facility, this would be slightly less dense than the Four Seasons. So the comparison of density here, this is residential density. Now in the city center zones that allow commercial, such as the city center adjacent and city center commercial, those two zones do not have a cap on commercial density. Commercial density is self-limiting. You won't see a runaway train of commercial just because it's not economically viable. So the city center ordinance does not cap commercial development. It does cap residential. And that's the comparison we're looking at here is if we change to CCA, we would be allowed to have a commercial or an institutional use such as the vet hospital, but we would also allow for a different residential type, which is the mixed or the multifamily residential. Okay. So if you take that acreage under SF6, the way that we would subdivide that property, if it were to be, this is an assumption, if we were to develop it to its maximum potential, rough calculations would say you get about 37 lots on that entire parcel of 7.5 acres, 7.67 acres. That assumes that we take out 20% of that area for roads and rights of way. So each of those lots can have frontage. And then we were to calculate it based on the net. So 37 lots, if it were to stay SF6, this is general math here. If it were to go as proposed, we'd have a couple of single family residential lots on the north boundary and then multifamily towards the south. The proposal would suggest 72 multifamily units. And then between 8 and 9 single family residential on the north portion. So that's kind of a comparison of the residential density between the proposal and the existing zoning. Okay. Hopping down, building form comparison. This is just kind of showing roughly what types of buildings would be allowed between the two classifications. In SF6, the only building type allowed is single family residential detached, a small cottage style. Now, in the city center ordinance, the SF6 zone was created after the original city center ordinance was adopted. So we looked at MR7, MR8, and there were a couple developments that developed under those classifications, and we made a tweak and we created the SF6 classification, which is very similar to MR8 and MR7. However, we don't allow for twin homes or townhomes under SF6. It is allowed under MR8 and MR7, but not SF6. But in the city center adjacent, we allow for several different building types that you can see here. So 2 families, twin homes, multi-unit buildings, and then commercial buildings as well. So if we look at some examples in the code for SF6, you see some of these small lot residential cottage style homes, and that's what would be allowed under the existing zoning. And if we hop down to the city center adjacent building forms, these are examples that we would see. And I think the closest comparison is some of these, 3-story multi-unit buildings is what we would anticipate seeing under the proposal. But it does allow for that commercial or institutional use that we need for the vet hospital.
So Scott, can you tell us the housing little subdivision north that's already there? Can you tell us how many acres that is?
That is here over 5, I believe. Let me just double check.
Which is also zoned SF6, if I recall.
Correct. The Westview subdivision was developed under the SF6. 5.5 acres.
5 acres.
Yep.
And I counted today, there's 24 homes in there.
24 homes. Yep. So one thing I mentioned in the staff report, let me just make sure I'm not getting ahead of myself here. We'll compare the open space between the two here in just a minute. I did provide a land use comparison. So I put the land use table into the staff report. I truncated it, so we're not looking at all of the zoning classifications throughout town. I just put in there the city center zoning classification. So downtown, city center adjacent, city center commercial, the MR7, MR8, which is very similar to the SF6, mixed use, residential, multifamily, and hospital. So if we're doing a side-by-side comparison, the best columns to compare SF6 is the MR8 and MR7. We don't actually have a column specifically for SF6 because it's only single-family residential on 6,000 square foot lots. Those are the only uses. It's just residential. Okay. But if we do a side-by-side comparison under CCA, this multiple family apartment is what is needed for the classification change. And if we zoom down here, here's the veterinary animal hospital clinic that is a permitted use in the CCA. It is not permitted in those single family zones. A couple of comments that I had read from the public that I think might be a good time to address it right at this point is there are some concerns that if a rezone were to be granted, that any number of these uses that are listed as either permitted or conditionally permitted under CCA would be allowed on that parcel. And that's not a wrong assumption. However, typically when a municipality rezones a parcel with a very specific plan in mind and specific uses that are being considered, we could write into a development agreement that says very narrowly, you are allowed to use this property as CCA, but only for the vet hospital and multiple family residential. And the developer or the owner would knowingly self-limit themselves to just those uses as proposed in their development plan. So if we were to just rezone a parcel to CCA, yes, that parcel would be allowed to develop any one of these uses. However, when we're doing a rezone, the city has that discretion to say, we'll allow this zone, but we're going to limit it to these very specific uses only, and we're going to memorialize that in the form of a development agreement, where the owner waives the ability to use that parcel for any of the other uses in the table. Okay, just if the city were to choose to do such a thing, that is a tool that the city has at their discretion. Okay, so that's a comparison side by side land use, land uses, types of uses that could be allowed on the parcel. Hopping down, here's our open space requirement for development in the city center. In the CCA zone, there's a requirement that we have 20% open space for each development, whereas SF6 does not have an open space requirement. Presumably, those homes would use their own backyards or their own front yards for their little bit of green space on a unit by unit basis. In city center adjacent, where we have mixed use, commercial, multiple unit type of development, we want to set aside a portion to be used as common open space. That's why that 20% is the highest in the CCA zone. So that requirement is required. So if thinking back to that site plan, we've got the playground and the green open space plus the dog park and then the landscaping that surrounds the rest of those buildings. That would make up that 20%. Now, keep in mind, the concept plan is high level. You know, we still need to figure out if this were to go forward, where does stormwater go? You know, there's a lot of it that would have to be reviewed prior, but just so you guys know, that's the difference between SF6 and CCA when it comes to open space. Okay. General plan analysis. Now, the general plan has a lot of comments that speak to the city center as being a mixed use zone. It is easy to go through the general plan and try to cherry pick things that are in favor of a development and that are opposed to a development. There's the city, or I should say the general plan is weighing so many things and trying to balance a myriad of interests that oftentimes a general plan will step on its own toes. And it's clear when you read top to bottom through the general plan, there are portions of the general plan that say, yeah, we should not do something like this. There's other portions that say you should do this. This is the place to do this. So I've tried to provide a little bit of that here, but you'll notice I don't go specific into areas where the general plan detracts from this and where it would support this. Rather, what I've done is I've said, okay, if this is a proposal we are interested in, here's how the general plan could support it if we wanted to use the general plan as a guiding document, not a code document. So for example, the future land use analysis, the future land use of the general plan is very broad. It says generally in the city center, we want mixed use. That red blob in the center of town, you know, that was the idea. We've had more specific planning with the city center ordinance that was more specific, a smaller area plan for the city center that called for more single family residential, small lot residential east of 4th East. And then we would keep some of those mixed use and apartments towards the middle of the city center. But it doesn't say that that is the only thing that can be done. It says generally, we'd like to have some buffering, some transitions in our land uses. But it's been a decade since we've adopted those plans and current, times might call for different thinking, maybe or maybe not. That's where the discretion of the planning commission comes in for you to determine, do we want to stick with what was drafted 10 years ago? Or has there been something different that would warrant alternative consideration with this proposal? Parks and trails, again, those trail connections in the general plan are being provided in the proposal. Transportation, 4th East is designated as a collector arterial street with a certain right-of-way width. Again, very pedestrian friendly with a wide path along that north-south connection. When we look at rezoning, oftentimes we might want to consider how is the traffic impacted? How many more trips are we generating at this location? So many folks in the audience know Logan City, for example, is contemplating, actually they just passed a rezone on the mall site. And that is a significant change in traffic patterns and traffic demands. They have 370 something residential units. And so they need to be very specific about their transportation planning and their traffic analysis. This type of a rezone is a moderate increase in housing going from 37 potential homes to about 70 to 80 homes. It is an impact for sure. And if we're worried about transportation, we want to have a traffic study done. We would typically do that either now as a condition of the rezone or at the time of a subdivision is required. Our subdivision ordinance requires a transportation plan to be completed if requested by the planning commission during the development plan process. So that might be something that the commission wants to see, wants to understand, and that's something you could request to see what that looks like. Parking, now keep in mind the concept plan is still very high level. It's looking at generally is there enough room on this parcel to accommodate what they're requesting? Can we put 72 units on there and the parking and the open space? Can it fit? Yes or no? And so that's why we go through that concept plan to see generally, does this fit? And what we're looking at as proposed is a total of 254 parking stalls, which exceeds the demand by about 22 stalls. So there's a little bit of a surplus in parking. And there's additional 15 stalls for the park space that are open to the public that are also surplus. And that's assuming that there's 2 stalls per residential unit and 1 stall per every 250 square feet of that animal hospital. So if we were to calculate all that demand, they need to have, I think it was 232, and they're providing 254. Okay, so we know we can get the parking to fit. Now, some folks may say, I don't want that much parking and I want there to be a reduction in asphalt. And I'd like there to be a smaller ratio. And I'd like to make sure these folks are more single car families. That's a discretionary thing you guys can look into. But as proposed, it could meet our ordinances for minimum parking. I think the most important consideration with the general plan and the more recent general plan update has to do with our moderate income housing plans. And so everybody in the audience knows the state of Utah, the legislature, starting in 2019, has put very strict mandates on local municipalities to try to bring moderate income housing to fruition. And I crunched some numbers just the other day, trying to understand where are we at in this price point. And given the area median income, we are trying, at least the state is trying to get municipalities to find a way to house households that can only afford $1,300 a month in housing costs. So at $1,300 a month in housing costs, that is generally a 2-bedroom apartment. To purchase a home with that budget under today's market situation, interest rates, all of that, you're looking at about $150,000 as your purchase power. So it's very tricky to get that type of housing. However, under the proposal, a 2-bedroom apartment theoretically could meet that price point. So this project could help the city to achieve some of this moderate income housing that is tricky to obtain. Okay. Water, looking at the water situation, everybody knows North Logan water is tricky, and we've got some critical shortages and some projects that we're working on. The city did complete a well this past summer season, and that is up and operational. However, we still have very critical storage and conveyance infrastructure demand, I should say capacity. We're producing enough water. We just don't have the ability to get it to certain areas in town in an efficient manner, primarily the northeast corner of town. Above the canal, where it's far from our water sources, a lot of pumping and storage is required to service those areas of town. However, as mentioned in the staff report, when speaking with our public works director, the water model that we have currently does not show constraints providing culinary water to this particular location in town. Now, everyone knows we're on water shortages, what's the word? Conservation.
Restrictions.
There you go. Where, you're assigned certain days of the week and we're trying to conserve, and there's tiered water rates. That's to help the system as a whole provide water on peak demand days and peak demand times, where we produce enough water. It's just trying to get it where it needs to go at peak demand, where we try to conserve. But in order to service this project with culinary water, the water model would allow for that to happen, and we are continuing to increase our water production capability. So that's culinary water. Secondary water would come from the twin ditches that's immediately adjacent to the property. So they would use water rights to water their exterior landscaping out of that canal. Okay. Other utilities, generally not
I've got
much of a
quick
concern.
question, sorry, back on water.
Mhm.
For culinary water, do the developers provide shares based on units, population, or how does that work?
There are calculations that are done based on the number of dwelling units.
Dwelling units.
Yeah.
Okay. Times a certain zoning, or
It's just number quantity, I believe. Do you know if it's, yeah, more of a public works question, but yeah, it's on number of units, not square footage, not the institutional use is based on meter size, if I'm correct. So depending on their demand, their water demand for that facility, there's a fee that they pay for that water meter size that then determines how much water they can use at that facility.
okay, so more dwelling units, more cost in the development.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay. My recommendation, so staff, when it comes to these legislative decisions, this is a very public decision and it is not necessarily a decision that is made by any one individual. So the recommendation that I provide in here is that you use broad deference in consideration of this project. Consider anything and everything, that you think is important. If you think that this project is important and we would like to move that forward, there are some recommended conditions of approval that you'll see in there. And most of those are particular to if a development agreement is drafted, what items should be in that development agreement at minimum. Those are those conditions in there. But in a nutshell, that is the project, a quick comparison of the existing versus proposed zoning. And then it's just kind of, is this the right time? Is this time for us to do that? And I think part of the consideration, I haven't mentioned this, I have, but not in great detail. The city is on the cusp of starting a new general plan. We have an RFP that has been issued. The deadline for those proposals is in 2 weeks, and then the city will start a new general plan process, very much open to the public. It's a publicly led planning process that will help us determine, future land uses throughout the entire city over the next decade or two. And so that's also maybe something that should be considered by the planning commission, is just the timing of this proposal. Is this the right time? It's an interesting time in planning. Now, development proposals never follow, rarely do follow city planning efforts and infrastructure updates. So keep that in mind as well. There's never a perfect time for a proposal to come through the door, but here we are, and the timing is such.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Ready to open up for public hearing? Okay. We will open this up to our public hearing. Here are your rules. Before you begin, please, let me read you this first. Before you begin, please state your name for the record. Please speak into the microphone so that your comments can be recorded. Please limit your statements to 2 minutes. We'll have a timer up here. If you're also speaking on behalf of others, you may ask the chairman for more time. Please phrase your opinions in the form of statements, not questions. A public hearing is your opportunity to express your opinions to the Planning Commission. It is not a time to ask questions and expect dialogue between yourself and the commission or city staff. Please address your comments to the commission, not to the public. The commission might ask questions about your comments in order for them to better understand you. If you have questions or need to discuss an issue, please meet with the Planning Commission members or the appropriate city staff member before the public hearing where dialogue can take place. You may provide a written statement as your input for a hearing. You may read your entire statement or summarize it. The 2-minute limit applies. You may provide a copy of a written statement to the city recorder. He will make copies for the commission. Written comments, if a copy is provided, become a part of the public record but are not included in the minutes of the meeting. So I have here, I've read all of the comments that we've received so far.
I should mention that I provided all the comments that were provided up until 5 p.m. today.
And I
So-
checked at 5:10. And so they're here. We've
I
read
read those as
them.
well.
And Kenny's read them. I've read them.
I read them.
Everybody's read them. You're welcome to comment on them or say I have a letter, whatever, but know that we've got them and we've read them. So we will open up now for a public hearing. Come on up to the microphone, please, and state your name and we've got,
Let me.
My name is Clyde Holt. I live in Brookhaven. I'm on the homeowners committee. What we're concerned, what is the timeline? We didn't understand any timeline of when this is going to take place. The layout, I'd like to be able to get a copy of the layout that they presented. I don't know how we do that so that I can take that back to our group. I didn't notice anything for corrals and holding pens. This is a veterinary clinic. I'm sure unless it's a small animal clinic, there's going to be big animals. And that-
It's a small animal clinic,
Just a small animal clinic?
correct?
Okay, okay.
But I do think there will
But-
still have to be accommodations for small
Right.
animals.
Right.
So you're-
Okay, there's no
So a
pens or
good question.
corrals.
You have a good question there. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
kennels or something.
We're concerned about, I'm personally concerned about parking on 400. We got 3 peaks down there. You can't hardly drive by there. So there's some poor planning with that building. And I don't want us to have a place, I don't mind having a veterinary clinic there. I'm not against that. I'll say that right off. But there's parking of that power company square. I would suggest he buy that. Because that's a sore thumb that's gonna stick out there forever. But who's gonna keep that property up? Who's gonna mow it? Who's gonna take the weed control? That is a sore thumb for our neighborhood. And it will be it'll be for his neighborhood too. There's in our Brookhaven plan, there's a road that comes up and dead ends right at that power company's property. And I assume that there's not gonna be a road run through, okay, I heard that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Holt.
Okay, but I appreciate him mowing it. Hopefully he keeps it mowed. And he can put a pasture there if he wants, as far as I'm concerned, and put some cows on it and keep it mowed down.
Thank you. Or goats, whatever. Yes, you can line
Absolutely.
up.
My name is Stephen Moore. I live in North Logan. Appreciate the opportunity to address the commission and I appreciate your service. Sir, I'm surprised that you bought a piece of property that was zoned for SF6. I was there when we made that decision to have SF6 as a buffer, as you spoke of. And it's not 10 years ago, that sounds like a long time. I've been here longer than that. And the purpose of that SF6 was to provide a transition. Immediately to the east are 1 acre estate lots. So to put this right next to 1 acre estate lots is really not in keeping with the concept of a buffer. And I'm also very concerned that we are doing, I think some people call it pocket zoning. Let's stick with the plan. We have a plan. I don't know why you bought the property and have been given the impression that we're going to make a change to our plan. I admire what you're proposing. I just don't think it fits right here. I don't think it fits within the city center concept that we have to say we want a public place where people are going to gather and be together. I'm not really anxious to go to a veterinary clinic, to be honest. But those are my thoughts. There's a few other things, but there's many other people here. And I do hope you extend the time. We only were told we were having a half-hour meeting, but thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Carlos Anderson. I live in North Logan. My property is straight east of this proposal. I am totally against it for 2 reasons. What Steve just mentioned, city council agreed when they put in the, I don't know if they're high rises or what, but it was on the corner of 22 and 4th. That was the agreement. Everything south of there would be single family homes. Anything east of the canal, same thing, to keep the neighborhood a neighborhood. Put the blasted place elsewhere. We don't want it. And I don't want barking dogs in my backyard.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Liz Allred and I live just off of 400 East. I have a great concern about increase in traffic. We already have a real problem with the Three Peaks parking. It gets pretty dangerous around the roundabout. I also think that we have plenty of businesses in that general area. I don't think that we need to add another one. I don't think that the placement of this business is even after the vision, which, you know, is laudatory. I have friends in vets. I've been in their clinics. I've worked on projects with them. So I know what the need is for them. But at the end of the day, it is still a business. It brings in a lot of traffic. And I don't think that we have, even with the development of another road, east-west, that we have the capacity and the infrastructure to deal with that. So I am against this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Cindy Beeston. I also live just off 400 East. And I travel on that road multiple times a day. And the traffic there is horrendous. Whoever authorized Three Peaks made a mistake because they don't have enough parking. And for the parking that you're proposing for this facility, I don't think it's gonna be appropriate. Even though the veterinary facility is a nice idea, move it somewhere closer to campus, like Kenny said. There's plenty of open space on 1400 East that you could put it up there closer. But this is zoned single-family housing. We have single-family housing on both sides of it. Keep it single-family housing. Don't ruin our neighborhood by putting another business there and increasing the traffic. We do not want it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Hansey. I have previously provided written thoughts on it. As I listened tonight, I was surprised that this has been in front of the city for a year. That's been in front of us for 50 minutes. That's hard to correlate that reality. And it's just unfortunately you spent so much time before looking at the realities of this area as compared to what's going on around it. The people already spoken of the 400 East as a divide line for zoning. Points that I noticed are you're going from 37 to 80 lots. That's a crazy increase. That's what we're talking about. There's a focus on the veterinary clinic, but you look at the other big buildings that are all going to be apartments, and that's what you get out of this change. That's what people are against. 2 stalls per unit will pack the roads like they have. It just isn't feasible. If the numbers are what the numbers are in the ordinance, then change the ordinance to have enough parking to keep it off the roads. If it's a city center, I would think you'd want to bring a tax base and wallets to a city center. We've learned that students are poor from testimony today, and there's not going to be a lot of sales tax or their business driven from a veterinary clinic. If you want to drive business and income and a tax base to the city and a city center, put city center stuff there, not this. You saw a picture of cottages that are allowed versus the multi-story. That's what we're trying to avoid. And then as to the whole issue of whether this is a rezone or something else, the only thing before you is a rezone. So if it's rezoned, anything could happen that's allowed in the rezone. To talk about a development agreement may be helpful, but that's not before this group right now. You have no development agreement to analyze. This is a nice picture, even if the apartments are gone, but that's not what's before you. It's just a rezone, so say no.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Dunphy. I live on 1800 North in walking and barking distance from the proposed development. Yeah, I had really thoughtful comments, but I wasn't aware there was a full planning report that I could have read if it were provided to me. So I'll say I think this is a really noble cause, and I guess I'll echo a lot of the other comments people made. This whole project was based upon zoning that's not allowed, so that seems a little odd to me. I think we have a very good master plan. I think we should stick to it. I think master planning looks comprehensively at what can be allowed in an area based upon, you know, traffic, character of neighborhoods, etc. I think the amount of vehicles that we're going to have out there with students is going to be a lot higher than single family residents. I was a veterinary technician for a number of years. I will tell you, animals are very loud at veterinary clinics. I still work as a wildlife biologist. Captive animals are loud all the time. I'll also echo that I really like the concept idea of a city center. And it's not really clear to me how, like the other commenter said, how we're going to bring business to the area. We need restaurants. We need things that people want to do. We have a ton of animals. We have 2 veterinary clinics very close to us. Walking distance, there's no way anybody's going to walk from there to the veterinary facilities. The canal, nice idea, walking trail behind there, but it seems like it was presented that this applicant's going to do that. But I think what I heard is any applicant or any development would be required to do that. Right now, the canal, I walk there all the time. It's not conducive to walking until it's totally connected. So I think this is a great cause. I think there's a lot of great causes, but I think great causes should go where they're properly zoned for. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment.
Thank you.
Well, my name is Porter Wilkins. I live in the Westview subdivision, just immediately north of this property in question. I'm representing myself and the Westview subdivision. For the benefit of everyone here and for Dr. Farber, I'd like to read my previously submitted comments. I want to start by saying that I'm aware of the need for more moderate income housing in North Logan, and that this zone change could help address that need. I also acknowledge that my opposition to the zone change probably makes me look like a myopic NIMBY that's not my backyard neighbor. With that context, I still oppose this zone change. My professional background includes 4 years of working in community development for a city similar to North Logan. The city officials tended to be approval happy and developer friendly, which at a surface level could seem like a good thing. However, it resulted in spot zoning or pockets of non-similar uses being applied next to each other. This meant that neighborhoods full of single-family homes ended up with random businesses or 4- and 5-story apartment buildings next to them. It resulted in a lot of angry neighbors, which led to dissonance among the residents. I certainly don't desire that for this community in North Logan. We are originally from Idaho and came to Cache Valley for its magnificent mountains, agricultural atmosphere, and overall amenities. We purchased our home here in North Logan because of the quiet neighborhoods, superior schools, and friendly people. We love this community and cannot think of anywhere else we would rather be. When we learned that the area near our home would be a future city center, our minds were happily filled with images of a bustling mixed-use neighborhood with beautiful open spaces to gather in. Watching our street fill in with new homes and families, we are excited by thoughts of a new neighborhood to the south being built with homes like ours, owned by families like ours with young children. I want to add to my statement that I'm not opposed to this project in general. I appreciate Dr. Farber sharing his vision and goal with this project. I wish him luck and hope he finds a way to achieve his goals. My opposition comes from a general concern for land use. To the north and south of the property in question are homes in high density zoning. Being close to the city center, this makes logical sense. To the east is undeveloped land, but nearby are single family homes in lower density. Can I continue for my subdivision? Is that all right?
Yeah, you got 10 seconds.
Okay, right. Extending the city center's adjacent zone into this area opens up the possibility of this vet school and other multi-story apartments. But it also opens up possibility of other commercial uses. So I hope that I humbly ask the commission and city council protect the single family zoning in this area. And if additional density is desired, please.
Thank you.
Otherwise.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brad Crookston. It doesn't seem like that long ago I was on this planning commission, but apparently 10 years ago is quite a change for the zoning. But I want to echo a couple of things. It's a significant zoning change, nearly doubling the amount of residents there. I'm opposed to the zoning change. When I worked on this zoning many years ago, we were very particular about it. We worked very hard. We came up with a plan that we feel is a good plan that protects the adjacent residents as well as provides housing throughout the rest of the city center. The mixed use zone was essentially eliminated for this purpose, for the reason that it turned out to cause way too much concentration in up against the single families. I would ask the commission to keep the zoning as it is and avoid spot zoning. And I appreciate you serving as planning commissioners, and thanks.
Thanks.
My name is Glenn Young. I live on 21st North, 715 East. I moved there from the villas where I served on the city center zoning subcommittee and helped with some of the ideas for the city center. I think we've heard a lot of personal comments about negative things about a veterinary clinic. If there'd been a facility like this, I probably would have been a veterinarian instead of a do everything person. But I worked for Dr. Butcher and Dr. Foote on work studies. And they had cattle stuck all over. I had no idea where they were until I started working for them. I also did work. My degree's in ag economics, so I worked on the Greenbelt Amendment and did Emery County for that. And I've been out of school for over 50 years, so we've got nice facilities way out. So far away, I hardly ever go out there on the southwest. But I think we need to look at this really close. I have a granddaughter that went to Florida to attend a special high school that prepares her to go to veterinary school. And I wish she was someplace close like this going to school. I've worked for Lyle Israelson, Fred Stevens, and Sewell Murdoch for Cache Valley Breeding. If it was large animals, I'd be opposed. Small animals, I'm for it. I think this would be an addition to the community.
Thank you.
My name is Emily Wilkins and I live in the Westview subdivision that's just right next to this idea. I think that this is a beautiful dream and I really hope that it happens, but I do not think that this is the appropriate place for it. I would like to just say ditto to basically a lot of the comments that have been said. I would like us to inform everyone that a petition has been sent to you guys that my husband and I have done. It currently has 90 signatures that oppose this change.
Thank you.
My name's Stephen Funk. I live in North Logan. Years ago, we were presented with a plan for North Logan and citizens had their input. And it seems like every few years we come back to the same thing. A developer trades or purchases land and they want the city to bend over and change. Now, I commend the project. I think it's a wonderful project. The location of it, I think, is poor. I know where they're building the veterinary science or medicine building up on campus. I work on campus. This is not anywhere close to that. It's going to increase traffic in our neighborhoods. It's going to make our neighborhood and the city center less of a pedestrian friendly, which I keep hearing over and over again. Our goal is to make it a pedestrian friendly city center. This does not achieve that whatsoever. We see all the parking stalls. All of that means traffic in and out on 4th East that is already congested. We also have all of these other homes, apartments that where the citizens parking, they're parking on the street. You drive up and down 1800, they're on the street. Well, why? Because we don't require enough parking. People bring more cars than we realize. People don't walk as much as we realize. I oppose this not because of the plan, but because of the location of the plan. I hope that we remember that while the instructors and the students will come and go, we've chosen to live here. This is our city.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Karen Polkey. I live off 400 East. I travel it. It is congested. Many things that were just said, I would second. I believe that this is a good program or a good plan. It does not belong at that location. It should be adjacent to other businesses. There are many other lots that were shown that would be a better location than on 400 East. I also think if I had purchased a home either in Brookhaven or immediately north to this, I would be very upset because the assumption is that single family homes would go in. And I do not like to hear dogs barking or smell animals. And I'm sure that many of those residents feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Josh Kemp. I live in the Westview subdivision, just north of this. A lot has been talked about the traffic, but I want to take the traffic to a different side with the safety. Our neighborhood is filled with kids riding bikes, running around, living the kid life. If we happen to have a business right behind it, who knows how fast cars are flying out of there? How many kids are going to go over there to ride a bike in an empty parking lot and somebody comes in and smacks one of those kids? I think this is one of those where we want to have a nice neighborhood. That at the end of our street, it dead ends just like Brookhaven. And one concern as well is that going to be a through traffic or a shortcut into the vet clinic? Or are they going to be parking all down our street and there goes our neighborhood parking, things like that. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Amber Miller. I live at 2058 North, which is right across the street from this proposal. I think it's laudable. It's in the wrong place. The infrastructure won't support it. The road was built over 20 years ago. It's been there since the city was planned, and it has not been updated. There are sections of that road where I have almost hit people because it is so narrow. There is no lighting on this street, even though I have lamps out front of my building. There's none. So at night, you can imagine traffic going up and down that road. And on top of that, that is the main thoroughfare for all of the ambulances and city police departments. They go up and down that road. So if you put that there on that road, the congestion will be a nightmare. You have to provide parking, you have to widen the road, and you have to provide lighting. And if you don't do it on 1800 North and put a light there, you're going to have even more problems with traffic. Right now, it's a four-way stop, and it's always a nightmare to get through there during the high congestion times of the day. So imagine a student trying to get up to the university and they can't get through that intersection. It's going to be a nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this time, Planning Commission. My name is Jonathan Dursteller. I live in the Westview community, just north of this proposal as well. Our view actually looks directly through that street, so we would be looking directly at one of these buildings when we if this did go through fruition. With regards to the proposal, they do show playgrounds right there. We have playgrounds right behind us in the cove. We use those. It's nice. But unfortunately, we'd be sharing that playground with animals, with quite a few animals. If that was the case, 80% of animal attacks occur in a familial location, but that leaves 20% outside of that. With regards to that, right now our percentage is 0. So I would prefer that not to increase. In addition, we do have kids, and our future expectation was indeed that there would be single family homes that would come and that we could enjoy with other people. We have 2 cats. We love our cats. Having an animal hospital nearby would be wonderful. We would be thrilled, but having it in this location, we strongly oppose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Jill Dunphy, East 1800 North, along with my husband. If you know me, you know that there's nothing that I want more in Logan than an emergency animal facility. That would be great, but I agree with everyone else that's spoken so far. This is just the wrong location. I'm surprised, again, echoing the comments of others, to hear that this is the first that we've heard about it when this has been in the process for almost a year. When I think of a city center, I too also think of restaurants, shops, things that draw the public, things that are walkable. Again, echoing my husband, nobody's going to walk to a vet clinic. I'm not going to carry my cat that's having a panic attack or some kind of thing to a vet clinic that's an emergency hospital. I'm concerned about the traffic. I'm concerned about the barking. Again, I just echo the concerns that have been brought forth. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Deborah Bryant and I bought in Brookhaven, and this is what I'm going to see from my house. This will be my backyard view. And I'm concerned about the value of my house, but I wonder, is there anybody who would like this in their backyard, which it'll be in my backyard? If anyone would like to look at this, smell it and hear it. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Brett Robinson and I've served on this commission, so it's difficult. I was with Mark Hancy and Brad Crookston when these decisions were made 10 years ago. And I will say it was hard then, but save your hard decisions for another project is my recommendation to you. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cameron Whiting. I bike around town in North Logan a lot, and I would bike up as far as Smithfield. I would bike over to USU, for example. I don't generate much traffic as a cyclist, and I would be comfortable being able to bike along those paths. I would like to be able to have affordable housing, to be able to buy someplace, to be able to stay in here. That's different from being a student. I make a pretty sizable income in cybersecurity, and I still don't find stuff here affordable. I think that building areas differently allows people's behavior and traffic patterns to change. That's my personal opinion. And I wouldn't purchase a single family home. I don't need that amount of yard space. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Sarah Torgeson. I live in the neighborhood just east of where this development would be put. As a mother to 2 young children, my main concern at looking at changing zoning to things like this is the high density student housing is concerning in a family neighborhood. I know that it's grad school and a lot of some of those families may have maybe families, but you're still going to see a lot of students that are single living there. And I think it's hard to live near student housing with families, along with all the traffic to and from the university and out of a complex of this size. Like as other people have said, the roads are not the best. The traffic is not accommodating to that. And just the safety. And also, if you build this and allow it, the fields next, it's just, where does it stop? So thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Spencer Crook. I live just to the east of this as well on 600. Just one 30-second point that I don't think has been mentioned. I agree with everyone that said that traffic will get a lot worse, and it's already really bad there on 4th. But there are children walking or biking from those neighborhoods to the east to Thomas Edison, heading to Green Canyon, heading to Greenville, and that is right exactly in this path. And that, I feel, increases the danger unacceptably for those children. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Okay, we will close our hearing, our public hearing. Thank you for your comments and your civil way you presented them. We appreciate that. All right, we get to talk about this now. Comments from the Planning Commission.
Question, was this proposed before? Because we had something like this not long ago.
No, it hasn't been.
Something
Yeah.
like this was proposed before. I know that.
Cody, will you make sure you're in the microphone, please? Thank you.
Aaron, I think you're actually, there was another proposal for some kind of veterinary clinic on
Right.
it at a different parcel though. That
Right,
was on.
I
Okay.
agree with that.
Okay.
That's why I was wondering, this same concept, I think, was proposed before, but not at this place, someplace else.
You know, it was us and it was here. It was an exploratory experience with you guys.
Okay.
If I could take 5 minutes, 10 minutes,
We really need to talk
Okay.
about it right now, okay?
because there's
So
definitely.
it's okay. We need to just let the commission talk about it for now. Thank you.
I've written down some thoughts. Do you want me to?
Okay. Yes,
So-
yes.
So, I mean, I don't know that I would even say anything beyond what's been said, but I think it's a laudable idea, but I do think the location is wrong. And I say that because I've been paying attention to North Logan City's planning and zoning for about a decade. And in that decade's worth of time, within the immediate vicinity of this parcel, I would say within like a mile's radius, I think there's been double-digit amount of rezoning requests in this area. I know we're only talking about one of those today, but I bring that up because when I built my home, and I think when most people build or buy a home, they look at how the surrounding area is zoned because they want to understand and educate themselves on how their neighborhood is going to be developed. And they do that because they have an expectation that zoning means something and that the general plan means something and that the city can actually stick to that. So, it would upset me if a neighboring parcel to me got rezoned after I had already made that decision to invest my own energy and time and resources into my place of living. And then all of a sudden the adjacent parcel is totally different than the expectation I had going into when I made that decision. Let's see. So I do appreciate the input from, we had, I think, 3 members of the planning commission at the time that the original zoning was made. I appreciated that input because this wasn't made on a whim. There was actually a lot of thought and deliberate action put into this originally. Yeah, spot zoning, I do consider this a spot zone based on the adjacent zoning already. And so not only does that just make for this disjointed patchwork of city, but then it also erodes public trust in municipal institutions when those things change. Noise and smell, I do think that would be a consideration that, again, the people who originally built in the surrounding areas were not anticipating that. It's been mentioned, I don't think it's a good idea as a general policy to buy a parcel of land, assuming that you can rezone it to develop in a way that you would like. I just think there's risk there. So right now I would be against this rezone.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Heron?
A couple of comments. I absolutely support the concept and the idea of this thing, but for me, it would seem that if this is such a good idea, that the university would jump on this and bring it closer to the campus so that the kids could move back and forth. I know there's a lot of university land along 8th East and 12th East that they could put this in there, and I don't understand. When you say that you traded the university for this, I don't know what land you traded for, but I'm along with Ken. I don't feel this is the place for this facility. I think it's a wonderful facility, should be close to the university. I think they ought to jump with you and provide a facility for them to support their programs at the university or their College of Veterinary Science. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you. Heather?
Thanks for going first, Kenny, because you nailed a lot of notes that I've been writing about. I really appreciate everyone's input. It's very valuable. I think this proposal is beautiful. I am a big proponent of education and providing great services. I think that's incredible. I too, however, feel like it is unfortunate that it is in a location that I feel is probably not appropriate at this time and zoned accordingly, which is unfortunate because I think the proposal will be amazing in the community wherever it lands. maybe that is in North Logan somewhere else, I'm not sure, but right where it stands is concerning. It seems concerning to our community members, which is then makes it a concern to me as well. Without repeating everything that's been mentioned, I feel some of those same concerns with noise and traffic and parking. And while I know that it was proposed that there'd be 254 stalls, I do get concerned with for some reason, yes, we could say that only 2 people will be in housing, but for whatever reason, people sneak in a bunk bed and then there's another person and another person. I do think our human nature and things that we see in society and with college students and stuff, you want a cheaper rent, that's human nature. It's going to happen. Whether we want to admit that or not, we want to be truthful that this is only going to be happening. But I do feel concerned that while there's an excess of parking, that still could exceed that. I also see an increase in the just having a business right there with people coming and going. Anyway, there's a lot of things. I absolutely love this idea. I think it seems incredible for the students. I can't voice that enough. Thank you for thinking of these things. I think it's an honor that you're proposing that it's coming to North Logan City. However, I think we need to respect our citizens in the community and what this was proposed at this time. That's my feeling. Really
Thanks.
long-winded.
Before Gavin, I just have to comment on what Heather said. I just went on a little field trip to the Cove when I've been thinking about this. There are, how many 58 townhomes in the Cove, which means with the townhome, there should be 116 parking places because they're built, there's 2-car garages, but that is if you own one of your cars is a moped, I think. They're so tiny. So they have that. And then I counted that there are 89 other extra places to park in the Cove, which brings it to 105 parking places, and they still park out on the street. So that is a real concern for me. So I'll tell you my rest of the stuff later. Let's go on to Gavin.
So I've got a few questions. So for an application like this, what zoning types are allowable?
So in order to have an animal hospital, the zoning that allows for it is city center adjacent, which is the proposed city center commercial, I believe downtown, and then some of our more generic commercial zones that are outside of the city center.
Would you mind bringing up a zoning map of the
I
city?
just want this to blur.
Let me find it here. 1 second. Okay. Animal hospital, vet clinic. So, yep. So downtown city center, Jensen, city center commercial, mixed use. We have some mixed use zones where it would be allowed as part of a mixed use project. This table does not include the other commercial zones throughout town. However, it is permitted in our city, our general commercial, and also in our manufacturing area as well. So going to our zoning map, if I were to zoom out, generally speaking, you'd be in the darker red areas of town, or this gray area is where you would be able to find land for that use. In addition to the purple city center adjacent, the lighter red city center commercial, and then the downtown, which is here. This is their downtown city center zoning classification.
So I guess what I'll say is when I came here today, I had read through the report. I had looked through the zoning maps. I had driven through the area, and my initial take on before coming was that it doesn't seem to clash with the area that it's in. A veterinary hospital near 2 other hospitals, higher density housing. So when I first came today, it didn't seem to not fit, but I appreciate the I appreciate what I heard from the public today, who are more expert on that location. The other thing that changed my mind a bit was some of the feedback on the planning that was done years ago, and the purposes for that planning I was not aware of. So I thank you for sharing those things as well. A few little nits. I wouldn't call it a spot zone. To me, it's more of an extension of the CCA that's just to the west. And again, it's a hospital-like place in between two other hospitals. But when I buy a home, I look at many things before I do it. And one of those is the zoning map. And to me, that's the agreement and the handshake and the agreement of the city and what's going to go there. And I don't think you can throw that away lightly. I think that's something that people make large investments on, personal finances. They've worked their life to save up some money to buy property in a home, or as a business to prepare the capital and do that. So my thoughts are that I don't, after tonight's meeting and hearing from people, I don't believe it's the right place for it. And so that's where I'm at.
Thanks, Kevin. Teresa.
My thoughts were a lot like Gavin's when I came, as I read through everything and also as I've learned more about this. And I know as a mother of 3 sons and their families who went to graduate school, and a son-in-law with a family that went to graduate school, how I wish something like this would have been for them. I can just see so much positive to this idea of that. I just think the sociality and lots of things, I just think it's just a wonderful idea.
Yep.
I wish that there was another place. I just think it's a great idea, and I would wish that so much for my own children.
And can I make 2 more comments and 1 quick question?
Sure.
They'll be quick.
Sure, it's okay.
I guess the first.
You haven't heard from me yet, so go
Oh, yeah.
ahead.
The first comment, I think all of us are in agreement, like, this is why public hearings are so important. And we appreciate the public showing up because that really does inform us on these decisions. So thanks everyone for showing up. But my second comment was, we talked about how this might help North Logan City address the state's mandate for moderate income housing. And I do struggle with that greatly. And I've already expressed my opinion on other planning commission meetings. I feel like that mandate is heavy-handed and it's rife with conflict of interest from state legislators. So I just struggle with this from the beginning. And I don't think that a mandate like that with that context is reason to throw, even though I know we're in a difficult position, I don't think it's reason to throw a good plan out the window. And then lastly, it's come up a few times in here that some people have mentioned that this plan has been before the city for a year. I've been on this commission for more than a year and I don't recall having seen this before. So
it has.
So help me understand where that's coming from.
I'd like to clarify that as well. It's just so folks understand, the city doesn't sit and bake these things for a year before we throw it right before you in a quick succession. That's not how things happen. We received a formal application to review this proposal probably 40 days ago. And so we don't just throw this in front of the public lightly. We do entertain many requests for discussions from property owners who are trying to figure out what might be possible for their property, what isn't possible, what would have to be true for them to move forward with a proposal. So we have those discussions often, but it doesn't mean that we're formally considering projects until a formal application comes into the city. So a year, not true.
Right. Thank you. Okay, I have to agree with all of you here. I think it's a wonderful plan. I've met with these people, and I think that the concept is good. I'm concerned about the location and the density. I drove around West Haven. Is that the name of your subdivision? Westview. There's 24 homes in Westview on about 6 acres, was it? And it's a nice neighborhood. And like Kenny and the others said, when I built my home, I knew what the neighborhood was going to be. And that's what I wanted. And so I think it would be a wrong thing for us, especially in past, if the city has made this SF6 area. I think for the integrity of the city, we should uphold that idea. Plus, I think the density of the apartments would add a lot of traffic, a lot of parking places that won't be enough parking places. And so I'd have to say, without going into all this other stuff that I've written down, I appreciate everyone's comments. I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I appreciate this concept of the veterinarian hospital, but I would not be able to vote for a zone rate change. So that's where I'm at. Are we ready to vote on a recommendation or not?
Think so.
We'll give you 2 minutes, okay? Oh, I can give him 2 minutes. I can give him 2 minutes.
Could you pull up page 30 from the general plan, Scott? Just real quick. Again, we've looked at this one. Because, guys, I looked at this when we traded the property. So again, we're in the city center. And what's the red? It says mixed use city center. Okay, go to page 29, Scott, for me. Of the general plan? Or of the staff report? Sorry, of the general plan, 29 of the. So I'll have to pull that up from the website. See in just a second. All right, sorry, technical difficulties. So when I went and looked what city center and mixed use would be for that property, these are the things that it says in your own, on page 32 of the land use. It says the mixed use centers, which is where our property is, particularly the city center, intended to provide a village atmosphere where it's possible for residents to live, work, and shop in the same area. Page 36, mixed residential land use. Says clustered development may be combined with mixed use to include a mix of attached or small lot homes, including townhomes, small lot detached homes, and multifamily units. Some apartments or condominiums may be included. So again, when I look at the map and it says I'm in a city center or mixed use, and I read from there, it lists apartments and condominiums. It gives the planning commission a lot of leeway with that, what it looks like, what it means, but these highlighted areas are right from the general plan. So I guess I have a question. Page 29 actually shows our property being
okay,
a mixed use property, if you look at that. So
thank you.
I struggle with
Tonight, what we're
that.
supposed to do is come up with a recommendation to change this from small family 6 to city center. So that's what we're dealing with tonight. That's what we have to make our recommendation with. So I appreciate the comments. I appreciate where you're all coming from. It's a hard thing. This is a hard thing to do. And those of you who've been on the planning commission know that before. So now we have to be ready to make a motion. I sense that we have a negative motion
Yeah.
today. Okay, is someone willing to do this?
I will move that we submit a negative recommendation to the city council on this rezoning application.
I second that motion.
All right, it's been moved by Kenny and seconded by Heron that we submit a negative recommendation to the application for changing the zoning of partial 0021 from its current classification of small SF6 to CCA. We are recommending a negative recommendation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. We'll move on to number 2.
Workstations. Good job, Kenny.
Good idea.
Okay, could we ask you all to go out in the hall and talk so we can move on with our business here, please?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well. Anything else?
Okay, Scott, can we move on to item number 2?
Yep.
Everyone,
Please.
Commissioners, I think a
Please.
question. We're at
Hang on a second,
8:20.
I can't hear a word.
just a minute, we can't hear you.
Well, hang on a second.
That's a lot. Eric, we're glad to see you here.
You want to switch me spots, Eric?
Eric,
Like, just
Eric.
like old times?
Eric, you're the lone man.
See, he had to come. He missed it.
And you didn't even,
You can use this little thing here. Okay, Scott, let's move on to item number 2.
Okay, Commission, do we want to dive into this topic is, I guess, the biggest question. We're at 8:20 PM. I'm happy to spend as much time with you as this evening as you'd like. I'll proceed as you desire. Let me know.
you should never ask us.
Well,
Because
we
we
wanna
are
be
like,
We all, we
I
need
want to make
some
sure we have
chocolate,
meaningful
actually.
discussion, but it'll take a minute to kind of dive into a topic this.
Yeah, this is a meaty topic too.
Sure. I'm happy to do it.
This is one that last time I recommended that we go through the points, kind of point by point, have a discussion.
I think that was wise.
I mean.
And I-
I'm more of a night owl, so let's go. No, yeah, I don't know if now's the. right-
Commissioners, I think
I
what
would
might
be
be
hungry.
beneficial is maybe give you guys some homework. You were going back to school.
Do
Yeah,
that.
there you go.
Would you like
Do
some
that,
reading
Scott.
material? I have a few items that you might want to chew on and then maybe come back with some discussion.
Yes.
We kind of left the topic as we would like to do a little bit of homework on maybe some best practices on how to separate short-term rental from EDUs and long-term rental and what can be done from a policy perspective to keep that general intent. And there is some stuff out there and I've done some homework on it and I could fill you in on some of those things, but it is a very complex topic. And the proposal, there's a lot of red lines and I'm happy to go through those with you if you'd like to be a little bit more detailed on that proposal. But the biggest question we wanted to address in coming back to this is there something that we could or should or want to do to help protect the short-term rental versus long-term rental dilemma with accessory dwelling units? So I have some homework. I can give you guys some reading. You guys can maybe fill your minds with those ideas and then maybe we come back and discuss if there are policies we'd like to consider or not.
I would like to have that, Scott.
I
do-
love homework.
I do think we should we would be prudent to take some action on this at some point. So,
Right.
yeah.
I do
We
feel like it's
should-
important to move this forward for sure. There are actually a couple of individuals in the community that would like to build an accessory dwelling unit. And I said, maybe just wait a minute. We have some more language that might be not only beneficial to you, but also beneficial to the city. Maybe let us work through that for a couple more months. And then, if you want to submit an ADU permit, go ahead. You can submit today if you want under the existing language, but if you're not in a hurry, maybe wait until, the city considers this amendment first. And so they're kind of waiting patiently. They're not pushing very hard, but they would like to see an outcome to this without us kicking the can down the road too far. There's also some significant issues with our existing code that I would really like to make sure we tie off and
Yeah.
address sooner than later. So.
Yes. Teresa.
I actually spent some time with this and I really appreciate what you've done. I mean, I think some of the things that we've struggled with in the past, you've really made them much more clear. So
Okay.
I do appreciate what you've done so far.
Yeah.
Your bulleted list from the staff report of that time was excellent.
Yes.
It still takes a lot to digest, but a lot better than the 80 pages of code that were edited too.
Red lines. I don't recommend you read all the red lines. It'll give you a headache.
I did.
Thank you. At least it's appreciated.
You get a treat. We.
You did.
You get a bottle of water.
You get bottled water and stuff like that.
Is there a meeting coming up that we can block off and say, this is the one we're gonna have this
Can we
discussion?
do that?
Our next meeting, I don't have anything in the pipeline that we might have some open time. This particular item took an awful lot of staff time to just look at and draft a report. Just so it's clear, we have met with that individual a couple times in office informally, just answering questions, helping them understand what could maybe be done if a zone change were to be allowed. And so we did talk about that, but it wasn't a year. I just want to be clear on that. But it did take quite a bit of staff time from when the application was formally submitted, a month and a half ago, to get all the public noticing out. We had to mail several letters to each and every individual who was in the vicinity per our noticing requirements. We had to go and print signs, put signs on the property. It's just labor intensive to get these types of things on agendas and to get, decent information out to the Planning Commission for consideration. So I haven't spent a ton of time on the ADU research. I mean, I would love to have a policy analyst on staff to just go and dive into all of these, best practices. We just don't have that. So part of what I'm going to provide you, this is an experiment in your homework, is I did use ChatGPT in helping me quickly search the internet for broad topics. Am I missing something broadly that maybe we should think about? And that's a good starting point. It's a good place to say, okay, what is in the universe of policy for protecting ADUs from short-term rental and separating the two. And it was actually really helpful as a tool to just quickly distill the mountain of information that you could take forever reading through, and then just get down to brass tacks. Is this a policy maybe we would like to consider? Is this? So that I think that will be helpful of just helping us cut out the minutia. Here are some best practices, at least based on what the internet has on it already, because it just pulls from, the existing universe of information. But that might be helpful as a starting point to say, is this even something we want to consider? Yes, no, okay, no, check it off. Is this something we want to consider? Maybe, okay, leave it on the list. But I think it'll be helpful just to help us get to the bottom of the barrel and move forward.
I do too.
Yep.
And if like on our next meeting or soon, we don't have to have a public hearing, I vote for that.
Yeah, we have more time when we don't have it.
We will have a lot of public hearings in the next year. So that's something we can look forward to at the general plan, and part of the timing and some of this visioning will be addressed at that time.
Okay.
So,
And the next meeting, we're still shooting for one single meeting in September.
correct.
And the date,
Yeah, let me color.
September 14th.
Middle of the
Okay,
month,
is what you got here.
September 14th. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
And I think that'll still work. We don't have pressing items from applications that we need to get on the agenda. There probably will be the Weiberg subdivision development plan we'll probably have on that agenda, that one lot subdivision off of 16th East, but that I don't anticipate taking 3 hours.
Okay.
So
So are you emailing us this or dropping a file?
I'll
or
send
something?
you your homework assignment.
Yeah, perfect.
and Scott, thank you for all this information that you send
Yeah.
us. And
It is so helpful.
I mean, I read through it and I think, I'm really stupid. I've got to read this like 10 times.
Well,
Like
if
underline.
there's something else you want or something you think would be better, just let me know. I'm happy to
This is
incorporate
really
different
good.
ideas. So
We appreciate it. Thank
Sure.
you. And to get all these letters that we had, it was nice to have those
In one location.
done. So
Yep.
we could, Gavin.
Just a thought, just from past experience on another city council. When there's public hearings, what I found useful, I think it may have been helpful here tonight, is the applicant should get a good bit of time to discuss what they're doing, and I think that's great. But it's on them to provide the information, to provide a presentation, videos. You shouldn't have to be the one going through their material for them. If they want to show it, they should plan it ahead of time. And
Sure.
say they get 15 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever that is, right?
That's good.
But they own it, they have to provide it, it's their expertise. And then we get the staff expertise as a separate, not a commingled presentation, but then we get the staff expertise with engineering and water and planning and all those things. And then we have the public hearing, which is the expertise of the group, of the city, those who live here. And so I think having those as separate things, and it can help order it and organize it. Anyway, there's.
Is that,
food for thought.
That's
would
good.
that be helpful to you to have less time, or do you feel like it's gonna be the same amount of
Ye-
time?
Yes and no. I think we still need to have a good amount of time ahead. Well, just prior to coming to the planning commission, staff needs plenty of time just to
Yes.
wrap their head around what the proposal is, at least put some ideas on the paper for consideration. it's more of a compare and contrast analysis with a rezone, like if we choose this, what will the outcome be versus what is the outcome if we let the current zoning go forward? Like what's the difference? But no, I agree. We wanted to make sure the individual has plenty of time to present because they are the applicant. This is not city initiated. The onus is on them to bring a proposal and provide us an understanding why it may fit, why it's a good time for this, why it is okay that it differ in some ways from the general plan. But also city staff wants to be able to provide you with
Right.
a comparison as well.
So-
And just to be very clear, what they do with you in the application, don't change any of that. I'm just saying, just for this meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Beyond what they send you, they should own their presentation.
And can we tell them, this is your time limit? You have 20 minutes to present your thing or whatever.
That's what I was gonna say, because we ended up, the public hearing today did not start until an hour into the
Yeah.
meeting. And you know, we had it starting at 6:35 and it started at 7. So I think people were already getting frustrated before the public hearing even started. So if we
Do
can.
we just need to
limit
edit
their
our-
time to present and then maybe like the staff report, I think we all poured through that pretty well. So we probably could have summarized we probably could have summarized that in a little more succinct fashion, because I don't think the public was too concerned about every point in the staff report, or maybe I'm wrong.
Then do you
But
feel
just
like
so
on
you-
our, sorry, on our
ahead.
agenda, then do we drop that time frame? Like we know we're giving the applicant 20 minutes,
Yeah.
so then we show public hearing opens at 6:50, or is
I
that what
think,
you're?
I think we should be more accurate in what we present on the agenda.
Because
But just so you can feel better about tonight, the last big zoning public hearing, we finally
out
got
at
out of here
9:30.
at like 11 o'clock at night.
Oh.
So, you know, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
is it okay if we leave for bathroom?
Right,
break
Eric?
during
You were in that
time?
one.
You can take a recess.
Cause I couldn't last that long. I was like, can we leave for bathroom breaks and stuff if it lasts that long?
So you can make a,
Cause that seems like I'm ready now.
I guess, like, and I don't like when, anyway.
Okay, I just want to make sure that's okay.
you can take a recess too. So if you want to make a motion to take. a
So
quick
I can
recess, you
say,
can do-
bam, recess, bathroom break.
Second bathroom break.
Good to know.
Third
Especially when it gets contentious, you get boom.
This wasn't too bad.
Maverick break. We got a
There's only
break
one
for
that
drinks.
kind of yelling.
Maverick run, everyone go.
All
Maria, is
right.
this- Maria, is this all being recorded? So we
Yeah.
can get this?
Yeah.
We'll schedule that in public.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Marie.
Thank you, Marie. Thank
Please
you.
highlight Maverick run.
Oh, well, you guys, are we done talking?
We're done.
Okay, wait.
Motion.
Okay,
Oh.
Gavin, you got 1
You
minute.
look at me, you roll, I know, I'm just kidding.
Kenny's timing you. There you go.
So I think it's valuable, again, to separate the applicant's presentation from the city's. I think it's valuable to, I think it's, the public hearing is important, and I think we're doing that well. I guess I'm okay with long meetings. Long meetings are fine as long as we're listening and hearing everybody, but I think it's really important that we don't just skim the staff report. Because I think by having that go through all those points, it helps educate me. It helps educate everybody who's going to speak to say, oh, look, the city has considered parking, water,
Right.
planning, trash, traffic, and just all the way through the list. And yeah, it might be a little boring and they might not want to sit here for it. And maybe they thought they were coming at 6:15 or 6:45 for a public hearing. It's pushed 30 minutes because it's a long thing. Okay.
But it may squash some of their
Well,
concerns
yeah.
or.
I see that.
But having all that information answers questions that they may have
Yeah.
brought up. And so I value maybe not the nitty gritty all the way through, but a good run through of the valuable work that staff does.
Right.
Yeah,
And that
that's a
helps
good
me.
point of view.
I agree.
Because
And
I read
also-
I read it, but then to have you explain it.
It
is
calms
helpful.
us when you read
So,
it.
so I can see that point of view. I think we should just update the agenda that we published to the public to reflect the fact that we are going to have a 20-minute overview from the applicant and then another half hour from staff.
And they'll
so that
probably
they-
want to hear it. So
Yeah.
they'll come and
extend-
expect that
yeah.
they're gonna. speak.
Like I know I saw people with like small kids
He was
out
like,
here
I want to come and hear
that
what
had to get up
happened
and
with
leave
it.
because I
So-
think they were expecting
Yeah.
to be able to speak sooner and then they just had to get up and leave. So
What do you think of
just,
that?
we just need an expectation set.
a thought of mine. in past experiences, I've had commissions and city councils and county commissions not read the staff report. They show up, they thumb through it, okay, whatever. So I'm
Sometimes
I'm
that
grateful that you
happens.
read through it. And I think that the staff report is mostly for your information as decision makers. If you want to, if you feel like you have enough time to read it beforehand and you come prepared, maybe we don't have to get into the minutia of the staff report because it opens up questions that folks won't understand. It's complicated and it's hard to explain in a setting like this. But if there's a question, we can go spot specific in the staff report to where that analysis is a little bit more robust and bring it up. It's up to your discretion, how you want to run the meeting. Maybe some topics are not controversial. We don't need to have that detailed of a run through. Maybe some we do, but I guess that's up to you guys.
I like
I
it.
I'm never quite sure how far to dive into the staff report,
I think we did a great job. Where I was before, they literally read verbatim the staff report, so it was read into the record.
Oh.
Really.
Oh.
So the way you're
Don't do
thinking, I
that.
think is, I like that.
I think it's
So-
great.
And my other little question, so I know that the staff reports are public documents and they should be ready X days ahead.
about a week or so ahead of time.
Is there any way to provide them or how does the public get access to them or should they before the meeting?
That's a decision the city could make. It's a transparency question, I guess. Some municipalities have them available on a portal that are publicly available and they can download and read it at their heart's content. Other municipalities don't. Our city right now doesn't have a public facing document portal. But behind the scenes, something that staff is working on, we have to get this done before February because it's state mandated as well, but we have to overhaul our entire development review process. And as part of that, we're looking at a digital project review module that would be added onto our existing building permit module. So everything is digitally submitted and everything's digitally reviewed, everything's digitally communicated back to the developer. And that we'll have to look to see if that tool has a public facing portal where they can request a staff report or find what's on the agenda. Right now, I'm happy to provide it to them. When they ask me for it, I email it over to them, or if they stop by, I'll print out a copy for them. This particular zoning request, I only had 2 individuals actually stop by and talk with me that were curious enough to do that. Happy to give them staff report, print out the site plan. If they ask for it, it's publicly available, come grab it, but we don't have it on the website for them to download.
It takes a lot of effort too. And manpower.
Administratively, it takes quite a bit of time to do all those steps, yeah.
I mean, you have to-
So Kevin, I'm going to give a slightly different perspective. I analyze that staff report pretty well before we come to this meeting. So I can just hit the ground, have my questions in hand, ready to go, efficient meeting, just because that's how I roll. So, and I do think that most of the commissions like that. So, last night I could have chosen to go to sleep at a reasonable time or read this report, and I wanted to read the report to be ready, but if I know that we're going to go through the report in excruciating detail in this meeting, I will probably choose to just go to sleep. But I would rather have a more efficient meeting and have that
I'm
expectation.
not asking for excruciating detail. That's not what.
Yeah, excruciating was too
Yeah.
strong of an adjective, sorry.
I think it's okay to say, okay, traffic, this, water, this. I don't think we have to read the whole thing, but I do think it's okay to go through
Just
it.
do a run through.
Because I read it. I read what Scott sends. I read it several times, but it does help me when Scott says it for everybody to hear. too.
Yeah.
But
So-
not, we don't have to read word for word, blah, 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 blah.
Communities, they have staff reports that are like checklists. And so, especially if it's an administrative item, check, they meet the requirement, check, they meet the requirement. And there's not much more to it. And it's
Okay.
usually really small communities that are short staffed, just don't have the time to put any analysis into it. We could do that as a community and I could focus my time on other things that maybe more policy related. And we just say, look, administrative things, just be super high level, superficial. Let's just run this through quickly. And a lot of times communities have consent items where some of these subdivisions could be a consent item. They could be as simple as that, where we just say, listen, we're going to entrust that, staff is looking at this closely enough and this could be by consent approved. But you have the
Sorry.
ability to review it ahead of time and say, I want to pull it out of consent and review it in more detail. That's an option that the commission could do as well, just to be more efficient in some of these meetings.
Well, sorry, I want to make sure that I was clear on this, Scott. I love your staff reports. Like,
Yeah.
I think they're done excellently. I just think we can have the expectation that the whole commission has read and studied it prior to this meeting so that we can come to the meeting ready to take action.
But I'm still okay with you to go quickly through it. It really does help me.
But I
Get
think
it in my
like,
head.
like he talked about parking. He made that very clear. The staff report makes it very clear.
Right.
And how many people talked about parking?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like that was him saying what he
Yeah.
said made
But-
no difference to the people who
Well,
talked.
Well, I think that's
their concern.
Right.
I think
right,
it's
but he
because
already
they've
gave
learned
us-
to not trust the city's analysis on
because
parking.
The
Yeah.
place by my house.
Right,
that I
exactly.
fight every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's too bad that that was allowed to happen. It really is.
I wanted to say, it wasn't our fault,
Which, well.
but I didn't.
Well,
I
well,
think
Nor-
say
well,
it one day, and get it on record.
Get on record, it wasn't our fault.
So Marie can type it up. It
wasn't
wasn't
their
their
fault.
fault. Commission's fault.
so
Okay,
I agree, I agree that we should all come having read it and have questions ready, and that's what I do as well. I think, I guess what I'm saying is, the part of me that's got a little friction is, I think it's valuable to help in education for the public.
Yeah.
And increasing the understanding that, wow, they really are looking at these things, even if I may not agree. I think it helps builds confidence in the institution.
That's okay.
And that we're
I do
more,
agree with
and
that.
and I would, whatever, wherever the slider is on efficient to deliberative, I think somewhere in the middle is okay, that we're not a transactional group. There is some deliberation and pondering, and I think that's okay. I'm done.
I think we're all okay with that.
I think
And
that's,
we're gonna put
that's
it
fair,
back
yeah.
on Scott to figure out how to do that for us.
I'll just do whatever Scott says.
And I'm not talking about major changes. it's
Yeah,
just
I
the
know.
little tweak items, anyway.
I mean, I think I'll just ask you guys prior to each item, how much detail of the staff report would you like? And you guys can let me know how comfortable you are, or if you want to have a little bit more deliberation, we can.
When we're here,
play it
when
by
we're
ear.
sitting here.
Yeah, I can tell you, in the staff report itself, I want as much detail as possible.
Yes.
But I don't know that we need to discuss each one of those points in detail. Yeah.
So also keep in mind, from a staff availability perspective, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. I mean, that's never what I want to do. But if there's a time where the city is just slammed with proposals, you might get less detail. And I'm hopeful that some of these staff
Yeah.
reports that are run of the mill, we can maybe cut some out because it doesn't need to be as detailed. And I'll just have to kind of play that by ear as we have workload and trying to get as much information out on each project as possible.
And I think we trust that if there's more to discuss, that you would help share that.
Sure.
We need to have a, if you're like, hey, maybe we should spend a little time on this. I think that's cue to let's listen to what needs to be
Sure.
shared.
I just want to make sure my message was not received as anything, like your staff reports are
Yeah,
phenomenal. I'm not criticizing that in any way at all.
You said it was excruciating is what I heard.
That was the wrong adjective. I apologize.
Excruciating detail.
Nan,
Who's saying that?
Nan, since it came up so many times tonight about Twin Peaks or Two Peaks or whatever that's called, is the city ever considered explaining what happened? Because a mistake was made. I mean, it's obvious a mistake was made. Because that is not right, what's happened there. And has the city ever,
So help me
can
understand.
say-
I don't know that there was can we call it a mistake, or is it a shortcoming of our code? Because I think that the code was applied and it was approved based on the ratios in the code, but the code ratios had an issue. I wasn't here. That's my understanding. Let me know if I'm wrong.
well, I just think there needs to be some statement because people who live around there know it's not right.
Yeah, we all
But
know.
What will a statement do though?
Well, I don't.
Like, or is there some like parking
We can
ramifications?
say, sorry, there's bad
Yeah.
parking here, the end, but that's why, Teresa,
Yeah.
that's why I went and counted parking places.
I know, but
Hopefully.
but honestly, has the code been changed for
Yeah.
parking since that happened?
We've been working on parking.
Yeah.
I
Because
wasn't,
of
I
that.
wasn't on the commission when that happened, but we have been working on parking since, so.
I just hope it's been changed, and that could be the statement that's made is since,
Was there a
we are
change to the
working, we're
code?
doing something, because it just keeps
know.
coming up. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's-
all the-
That would be a good question to follow up
So
on.
like, sorry, parking is off.
But I think we need to make it clear
We should
that
shut it down.
people might, people might have 5 cars even though they're students. So anyway, let's move on. Can we move on?
I'm ready to walk out. Are we done?
No, we're not done.
Come on.
Anyway, Scott, can we count this as staff business and discussion?
I don't have anything else to follow up. So
Okay.
Scott, can I actually ask a question to the commission? Was anyone able to sign up for the the
the ULTC.
yes,
or
yeah.
CT annual convention.
Oh, the
don't feel bad, you guys.
Wasn't the deadline gone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
was
read the
passed.
deadline email after it.
I was,
I was like,
planning
oh,
on it and then I got called away.
Technically, we could still register you. We just don't get the discounted rate.
Alright.
So I'm trying to force
I
a
really
decision
want
early so
to,
we can
it's
save the
just-
city some money. But if you really want to go and you have a change of your schedule, let me know. We can still schedule you.
I really want to
I
go, but I
think-
still have a
I
job.
think a new thing too is we should get our credit hours for living through public hearings. Don't you think?
Could you
don't
write
have to
that
answer
into
that,
code?
Scott.
Okay, planning commissioners, do you have any more business to discuss? No. Okay.
I do not.
Next meeting is September 14th. I need a motion to adjourn.
I move adjourn.
And
Aaron's ready to
second?
go home.
Efficiency.
He's ready for.
Who seconded me? No.
I'll second it.
Oh, I second.
Okay, it's been moved by Heron and seconded by Gavin that we adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?